What if I told you that even the unshakable Johnny Carson, the king of late-night TV, completely lost control on live television? For 30 years, Johnny ran The Tonight Show like a master conductor, always calm, always witty, always in charge. Or so it seemed. But behind that perfect composure were moments so wild, so unexpected, that not even Johnny could keep it together. And trust me, number 8 on this list left America stunned. These are the 16 most insane, unscripted moments from Johnny Carson's legendary run. Moments that shocked viewers, broke Johnny's cool exterior, and turned into TV history. Let's dive in. Guest number 1, Ed Ames. It started as a simple tomahawk demonstration. April 1965. Actor Ed Ames, famous for his role as Mingo on Daniel Boone, stepped onto Carson's stage with nothing more than a wooden target and a throwing axe. Johnny, as always, played the curious host, listening carefully as Ames explained his technique. Then, Ames hurled the tomahawk. The target? A cowboy silhouette. The result? Absolute mayhem. The tomahawk landed with perfect precision. Right in...
Once around on the way, but that's indefinite.
All right. Right.
The wooden figure's crotch. The audience roared, but the real magic came next. Johnny Carson, cool, polished Johnny, completely lost it. He doubled over, tears streaming down his face, laughing harder than anyone had ever seen. For nearly 3 whole minutes, America watched the most controlled man on TV unable to speak, gasping for breath, surrendering to pure, unstoppable laughter. And then came the punchline. Carson wiped his eyes, steadied himself, and with perfect timing, looked at Ames and quipped, "I didn't even know you were Jewish." The crowd exploded. In that moment, Johnny wasn't a host. He was just a man caught in the most hilariously unplanned accident of his career. And it made him more beloved than ever. Guest number 2, Don Rickles. Fast forward to October 1973. Don Rickles, Johnny's friend and the ultimate roast master, was guest hosting the show. And during his run, Rickles made a little mistake. He accidentally broke Carson's prized wooden cigarette box. And if you knew Johnny, you knew that desk was sacred. When Carson returned the next night, he held up the broken box like evidence in a trial, promising to get back at Rickles. The audience laughed, but no one had any idea what Johnny was about to do. Months later, Johnny found out Rickles was taping his sitcom CPO Sharky on a nearby stage. So what did he do?
They told me you broke it on the show last night. Well, I really... You did tell me. No, but I'm sorry about the box.
Well,
I will come up with something.
Well, I hope so.
But just keep me on your show. You mean so much to me. Can I?
No,
Please. No.
Don't humble yourself.
Please, I want to be with you so bad.
Don't humble yourself, brother.
He
I was
grabbed a
in the
camera crew, stormed off his own set, and barged straight into Rickles' taping, live, in front of a totally confused studio audience. Rickles froze mid-scene, still in his Navy uniform, as Johnny walked on like a man on a mission. "You broke my cigarette box," Carson yelled. Rickles stammered, begged, tried to joke his way out of it. The crowd went nuts. It was chaotic, it was unrehearsed, and it was magic. Carson and Rickles sparred like old friends caught in the world's funniest feud. And the best part? It showed Johnny in a way viewers almost never saw. Playful, spontaneous, and willing to break all the rules for the sake of comedy. Quick question for you. If you were in Johnny's shoes, would you have barged onto Rickles' set? Or let it slide? Drop your answer in the comments. because I'm curious if you'd have had the guts to do what Johnny did. Guest number 3. Bette Midler by May. 1992, Johnny's reign was coming to an end. 30 years, thousands of interviews, and millions of laughs. Everyone expected his final shows to be emotional, but no one expected Bette Midler to make Johnny cry on national television. It was the second-to-last show. Robin Williams had already brought the laughs, and then Midler walked out, full of her usual sass and charm. But as the night wound down, she turned serious. She told Johnny she wanted to sing something special for him. And then, with the entire studio silent, she began, "One for my baby," and one more for the road. As she sang directly to him, something broke inside Johnny Carson. This man, who had spent decades guarding his emotions, hiding behind wit and charm, suddenly had tears in his eyes. The camera caught it. The audience felt it. For the first time, America saw Johnny completely vulnerable, saying goodbye not just to his audience, but to an entire chapter of his life. When Midler finished, Johnny leaned forward, kissed her hand, and whispered words that would echo through TV history. I can't top that. It was raw. It was human. And it was one of the most unforgettable farewells television has ever seen. Guest number 4, the monkey incident. But just when you think Johnny's most emotional moment would be his last, chaos struck again. Picture this. An animal handler brings a monkey onto the set. Cute, small, playful. Johnny, ever the good sport, leans in close. And then, the monkey climbs straight onto his head. The audience screams with laughter. Johnny panics, waving his arms, trying to stay composed, while a monkey quite literally makes himself at home on America's most famous hairpiece. And just as Carson starts to regain control, the monkey spits. Right there, on live TV. Johnny looks at the handler, looks at the audience, and delivers the perfect line. I can't sit here with an animal on my head spitting on me. And the studio absolutely lost it. That's just the beginning. And trust me, the deeper we go, the crazier these moments get. Number 8? Let's just say it had viewers flooding NBC with more letters than almost anything else Carson ever did. You won't believe it. So before we move on, smash that like button if Johnny ever made you laugh, and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this countdown. Now, are you ready for the next insane Carson moment? Guest number 5, Steve Martin's absurdist magic routine. Steve Martin appeared on The Tonight Show, already pioneering a new kind of comedy. Awkward, absurd, and delightfully uncomfortable. He announced a magic act, and Johnny stepped aside, giving him the stage. What followed? Pure, unfiltered absurdity. Martin's Great Fly Daney routine involved him pretending to unzip his pants and pulling out eggs, a salt shaker, a ringing telephone, and eventually, a tiny hand that waved to the audience. Johnny's face started straight, but as Martin pushed the absurdity further, his composure cracked. He doubled over, caught off guard by Martin's complete commitment to the bit. By the end, Johnny was struggling to hold it together, as Martin maintained total deadpan. A producer later explained, Johnny loved being genuinely entertained. Steve was one of the few who could make him feel like a regular audience member, surprised and unsure of what was coming next. Even after the cameras stopped rolling, Johnny was still laughing. That's the kind of thing that makes this job worth doing, he told the crew. Guest number 6, Robin Williams goes rogue. Robin Williams was a force of nature, and Johnny knew it. Structured late-night TV, not when Robin was in the room. With his lightning-fast improvisation and manic energy, Robin turned every interview into controlled chaos. One early 1980s appearance started as a simple film promotion. Seconds in, Robin leapt from the guest chair, did rapid-fire impressions, and turned Johnny's desk into a stage. The control room panicked. Where is he going? Cut to commercial? But Johnny just waved them off. He knew that with Robin, the only option was to let go. Watching Carson, normally in full control, willingly surrender to Williams's frenetic genius was mesmerizing. Tears streamed down Johnny's face at points, not from sadness, but from pure, uncontrollable laughter. A producer summed it up. Johnny never knew what Robin would do next, and that was the highest compliment he could give a guest. Robin was gloriously unpredictable. Guest number 7. Don Rickles roasts Frank Sinatra, Frank Sinatra. Untouchable, legendary, feared by many. Don Rickles? Fearless. With Sinatra beside him on Carson's couch, Rickles launched into a brutal, side-splitting roast. He comes on, and everybody thinks he's so wonderful. Let me tell you something. This man is overrated, Rickles said. Johnny's reaction was a mix of nervous laughter and genuine concern. Sinatra had a known temper. Would he be offended? The tension was real. But then Rickles reached the climax. Frank, I'm only kidding. You know I love you. Can I get a ride home? Sinatra laughed, loudly, heartily, and the audience erupted. Johnny later admitted, Don knew exactly how far he could push, but there was still real risk there. It wasn't just comedy, it was television history. Two personalities colliding unpredictably, perfectly. Guest number 8. Dolly Parton and the infamous comment Dolly Parton. Famous for her music, and yes, her figure, something she often joked about herself. But during her interview, Johnny crossed into what would become one of the most talked-about moments in TV history. Looking at her low-cut outfit, he quipped, I'd give a year of my life to peek under that blouse. Gasps, laughter, shock. And Dolly? Ever the professional, she laughed it off. A director later said, You could feel the control room holding its breath. Johnny usually played the gentleman, but this comment was unusually direct, and it became the single most memorable, controversial moment of the night. The Dolly Parton comment generated more viewer mail than almost any other moment in the show's history. Some found it refreshingly honest, admiring Carson's willingness to say aloud what others might have only thought. Others criticized it as inappropriate, even disrespectful. A former NBC executive later noted that Johnny never publicly addressed the controversy, though privately he admitted he had crossed a line. Interestingly, Dolly herself never seemed offended. In fact, she later described it as a compliment. What made this moment so culturally significant was how it revealed shifting standards on television and public discourse. What might have passed without notice in previous decades was now subject to scrutiny. For Carson, a man who built his career on sensing exactly where the line lay, it was a rare misstep, a momentary lapse in judgment on what was appropriate for broadcast. A television historian observed, That comment wouldn't make it to air today, but it captures a moment when TV was still figuring out the boundaries between candor and respect. Guest number 9. Bob Hope bombs, and Carson is over it. Bob Hope, comedy legend, national treasure. By the 1980s, though, Hope's appearances were increasingly difficult. Once brilliant, he now delivered stale jokes about golf and politics, often reading from cards, seemingly disconnected from the audience. Johnny dreaded these segments. A writer recalled, Hope doesn't listen. He just talks. The most uncomfortable moment occurred in the mid-1980s, when Hope's material about current events fell flat. Carson's polite, professional smile tightened. He loosened his tie, glanced at Ed, the subtle signal, This isn't landing, but I'm going to soldier through. It was a contrast between Hope's former brilliance and his present struggle, a reminder of the ephemeral nature of comedy. A producer reflected, "It was like watching Willie Mays in his final season." Despite frustration, Johnny treated Hope with unwavering public respect, a testament to his understanding of comedy history and his own place in it. Guest number 10. Jimmy Stewart's poem Leaves. Carson speechless. Jimmy Stewart, gentle, halting, and beloved, had a rapport with Carson that was always warm. In 1981, Stewart appeared to share a light-hearted poem about his dog, Bo. But what he delivered instead was profoundly moving. "And there are nights when I think I feel that stare, and I reach out my hand to stroke his hair, but he's not there. Oh, how I wish that wasn't so. I'll always love a dog named Bo." The camera captured Carson's reaction. Tears welled in the eyes of the man famous for his composure. This wasn't a performance. It was Johnny Carson, genuinely moved, caught off guard by raw emotion. He didn't deflect with humor or rush to commercial. He let the moment breathe, signaling to the audience that it was okay to feel deeply, too. It remains one of the most memorable moments of Carson's 30-year run, not for comedy or celebrity gossip, but for simple human truth: love, loss, and the quiet power of empathy. Guest number 11. Snake escapes. During Joan Embry's segment. Joan Embry of the San Diego Zoo was a regular guest, often bringing exotic animals for Johnny to handle, sometimes eagerly, sometimes reluctantly. In the late 1970s, one appearance with a massive Burmese python turned into a legendary moment. As Embry explained facts about the snake, it suddenly slithered off the desk and headed straight for Johnny. Instinctively, he leapt from his chair, backing away in genuine alarm. A floor director later said, "Johnny wasn't faking that reaction. He's always game. But snakes? That's pure fight or flight." Once the snake was safely recaptured, Johnny returned to his chair, straightened his tie, and quipped, "Somebody better check my pants." The audience erupted. This wasn't just a laugh. It was a glimpse at the real Johnny beneath the polished host persona. His relatability, a man reacting exactly as anyone would, endeared him even more to viewers. The python incident became one of the most requested animal segments in the show's archives. It perfectly illustrated Carson's willingness to embrace unpredictability, often turning potential discomfort into iconic television. Guest number 12. George Carlin sneaks in a censorship jab. George Carlin had built much of his career challenging societal norms, most famously with his 7 words you can never say on television routine. His Tonight Show appearances required a careful balance: be himself, but respect the network. During a 1983 appearance, Carlin delivered a seemingly innocent monologue about everyday life. But embedded within it was a subtle, unmistakable jab at network censorship. Clever wordplay that slipped past NBC's standards department, but caught the more alert audience members and Johnny Carson. Let me ask you a question. If a real stupid person becomes senile, how do you know? Carson got it immediately. A writer remembered the knowing smile, the quick glance toward the camera. Johnny's silent complicity sent a message. "Yes, I caught that too, and I'm going to let it slide." Rather than distancing himself from Carlin's subversive humor, Carson seemed to personally appreciate it. A producer noted that Johnny respected cleverness above almost everything else, especially when navigating the absurd restrictions of network television. The executives were less amused, fielding complaints about the segment. But privately, Carson defended Carlin, essentially telling NBC, if you can't figure out what he did until after it aired, he earned the right to get away with it. For viewers, this became a meta moment, television commenting on its own censorship, a shared inside joke between Carson, Carlin, and the perceptive audience. Guest number 13. Dean Martin appears drunk and kills. Dean Martin cultivated the persona of the charming, slightly inebriated entertainer, a character audiences adored. During a 1970s appearance, he leaned heavily into that persona, slurring words, missing his chair, and delivering punchlines with exaggerated precision. Dean was playing it up more than usual that night, recalled a director. The audience loved it. They were seeing the life of the party, maybe a little too close to reality. Carson, ever the professional, didn't rein him in. Instead, he became the straight man, setting up situations that allowed Martin's act to flourish. Johnny knew exactly what Dean was doing, explained a producer. That ambiguity, was Dean really drunk or just acting, electrified the studio. At the comedic peak, Martin lost his train of thought mid-story and shrugged. "Ah, who cares?" The audience erupted. Carson appreciated the brilliance of that uncertainty, the magic of a persona perfectly complemented by a host willing to play along. Guest number 14. Johnny crashes his own monologue. The Tonight Show's nightly monologue was a ritual, predictable, polished, and delivered with clockwork precision. So when Don Rickles began heckling from backstage during an early 1980s broadcast, chaos ensued. Carson, momentarily thrown off, paused mid-joke. Then, in a completely unprecedented move, he broke character and called out, "Don, get out here!" Rickles, feigning innocence, emerged delighted, disrupting the routine. Johnny didn't complain, he embraced the spontaneity. He brought Rickles to the guest chair a full segment early, letting the unexpected interaction take center stage. A producer explained, Rickles represented the possibility that anything could happen. Johnny found that energizing, it revealed Carson's willingness to abandon structure when spontaneity promised something better. Television magic in real time. Guest number 15. Sammy Davis Jr.'s rapid-fire impression blitz. Sammy Davis Jr., one of the most versatile entertainers ever, transformed a casual conversation into sheer astonishment. During a 1970s appearance, he launched into a rapid-fire impression spree. Frank Sinatra, Jerry Lewis, Jimmy Stewart. Voices, mannerisms, expressions, all captured flawlessly in under a minute. Johnny clutched his stomach in helpless laughter, genuine and uncontrolled. This wasn't practiced material. It emerged organically from the conversation. A producer reflected, Sammy didn't need preparation. He lived these characters. Carson, himself a consummate performer, recognized the skill and difficulty, switching between completely different personalities instantaneously. He later said Sammy was the most complete entertainer I've ever met. If you could only watch one person perform for the rest of your life, Sammy would be the smart choice. The impression blitz remains one of the most celebrated displays of Davis's extraordinary versatility. Guest number 16. Arnold Schwarzenegger speaks only in German. By the mid-1980s, Arnold Schwarzenegger had transitioned from bodybuilding champion to Hollywood action star. On The Tonight Show, he decided to inject some humor into the standard promotional interview. When Carson asked a question, Schwarzenegger answered in German, completely fluent, completely earnest, leaving Johnny and most of the audience baffled. Johnny's reaction was genuine. What is happening right now? Instead of panic, Carson leaned into the absurdity. He nodded thoughtfully, interjecting with fake German words, playing along perfectly. The audience caught on, laughing at the linguistic chaos. Finally, Schwarzenegger switched to English, revealing the prank. He wanted to see how Carson would react. The magic of the segment wasn't just Schwarzenegger's joke. It was Carson's willingness to surrender control, to become part of the bit. The best moments on the show were the ones no one could plan. a longtime friend recalled. This was exactly that kind of moment.